I have been married to my husband for almost 2 decades. To the outside world, we look like the perfect couple. 2 kids, a nice house, a comfortable life. People often told me they admired our marriage, that we seemed unshakable. But what no one knows is that about 5 years ago, I cheated. And not just once. It became an affair that lasted several months. My husband still doesn't know. I've lived with this secret, the guilt and the shame every single day. And lately, I'm starting to wonder if I can carry it forever. I never set out to betray him. I wasn't out looking for something else. It happened during a rough patch in our marriage. We were barely talking, both exhausted with work and parenting. I felt invisible, like nothing I did mattered anymore. Then at my job, there was this man. He noticed me. He listened. He made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. It started as small conversations, then lunches, then texts that went from harmless to dangerous. Before I even realized how far I'd let it go, I was already crossing lines I never thought I'd cross. At first, it felt intoxicating, like I was alive again. But then the shame crept in, and it never left. What started as stolen kisses turned into hotel rooms. I can still remember the first time. My heart pounding so loudly I thought it might give me away. I told myself it was just once, that I just needed to feel wanted again. But it didn't stop there. It went on for months. The lies came so easily. Working late, traffic was bad. I'm exhausted. I'm going straight to bed. Every time I walked back into my home, I felt like a fraud. And yet, when I looked at my husband, he still looked at me with love. That made the guilt unbearable. I'd lie awake at night with him sleeping peacefully beside me, hating myself for what I was doing, but not knowing how to stop. The affair eventually collapsed under its own weight. He wanted more, to leave his wife, to make us real. That was my breaking point. I couldn't imagine destroying 2 families for something I already knew was poisoned. I ended it abruptly, blocked his number, deleted the emails. I told myself it was over, and in a sense, it was. But the damage was already done. I came home that night, looked at my husband, and felt this crushing wave of guilt so strong it almost made me confess. But I didn't. Instead, I swore to myself I'd be better. I'd never let it happen again. And I haven't. For the last 5 years, I've tried to be the perfect wife and mother. But the secret? It never left me. It's there in every hug, every smile, every anniversary dinner. It's a ghost in our marriage. After the affair ended, I poured myself into our marriage. I started cooking his favorite meals more often, planning little surprises, even being more affectionate. On the surface, it looked like I was simply being a better wife. But the truth? I was overcompensating. Every act of kindness was soaked in guilt. I wasn't doing it purely out of love. I was doing it to convince myself that maybe I wasn't the monster I felt like. He noticed the change. He even thanked me once, saying, "I don't know what changed, but I feel like we're closer than ever." His words nearly broke me. He thought our marriage was healing because of love. Really, it was built on my silence. And somehow, that made the guilt worse. Years have passed since that mistake, but it never really left me. The guilt is quieter now, like a constant hum in the background of my life, but it's always there. Sometimes when we're laughing together or celebrating holidays with the kids, I'll look at him and think, you deserve someone who never betrayed you. And the worst part, he has no idea. He sees me as loyal, steady, someone who stood by his side through everything. There are nights I wake up in a cold sweat, imagining what would happen if he ever found out. The look on his face, the betrayal in his eyes. I don't think I could survive it. So I keep the secret. I've buried it under years of good intentions and devotion, but it's still there, waiting like a landmine I hope never explodes. Most days, I manage to live normally, but sometimes, out of nowhere, a trigger rips open the wound. It could be a movie scene where someone cheats and I feel the heat rise to my face. Or when a friend vents about infidelity, I sit there nodding, silently screaming inside. Even something as small as driving past the hotel where it happened makes my stomach twist into knots. I've become skilled at masking it. A smile, a quick subject change, a reassuring touch on his hand. He never suspects. But inside, I'm dragged right back to those moments I wish I could erase. What hurts the most is knowing he thinks of me as his safe place, the one person who'd never betray him. And every time I see that trust in his eyes, I feel like I'm betraying him all over again. Keeping this secret has twisted the way I see my husband. I love him deeply, but sometimes I feel unworthy of his love in return. There are moments when he kisses me, when he touches me, when he looks at me with that soft, trusting gaze, and all I can think is, if only you knew. It makes intimacy complicated. I want to be fully present, but a part of me always holds back, afraid he might sense the truth in my hesitation. At the same time, I think I've loved him harder these last 25 years because of the affair. Almost like I've been trying to earn back what I stole from him, even though he doesn't know it was stolen. It's exhausting living in that contradiction, both guilty and grateful, distant and devoted. The irony? He often tells me he feels lucky to have me. And every time he says that, I feel the knife twist a little deeper. Even after 25 years, the fear of exposure has never gone away. If anything, it's grown stronger. Back then, if he had found out, maybe we could have ended things quietly, before the kids were old enough to remember. But now we have decades of shared memories, children who adore him, a family that sees us as inseparable. If the truth ever came out today, it wouldn't just break him. It would shatter everything we built. That fear sits in my chest every time we argue. Even small disagreements make me panic. What if, in his anger, he digs into the past? What if someone from back then slips up and mentions something? What if fate decides it's time for me to pay? I live with that constant edge of dread, and it's exhausting. He doesn't see it. He just sees a wife who sometimes gets quiet for no reason. If only he knew why. I've never spoken a word of this to my children, but somehow the secret has affected them too. There were times when I would overcompensate, throwing myself into being the perfect mother, almost as if I could balance out the shame by excelling in another role. Other times, when guilt ate away at me, I would get short-tempered or distant, and they had no idea why. I remember once, my daughter asked me why I sometimes looked sad when Dad hugged me. She was only 9. I laughed it off and told her I was just tired. But inside, I felt sick. Even kids can sense when something is off, even if they don't understand it. Now that they're grown, I sometimes wonder if they'll ever find out. Not from me, but maybe through some slip, some trace of the past. And if they did, would they ever look at me the same way? Or would decades of being a loving mom be erased by one devastating truth? This is the question that haunts me the most. For 25 years, I've been both wife and actress, playing a role in a marriage that feels both deeply real and quietly false. When he looks at me with love in his eyes, part of me melts, but another part wonders if that love is built on a version of me that doesn't exist. He loves the faithful wife he thinks I am, not the flawed woman who betrayed him decades ago. Sometimes I tell myself, if the love has lasted this long, then maybe it's real, no matter what. Other times I wonder if he ever found out, would everything we've shared just vanish? Would he see every anniversary, every kiss, every promise as a lie? I've carried that weight in silence for so long, it's almost become part of me. But on nights when I can't sleep, I lie awake asking myself if my marriage is strong because of our love or just because of my secret. There are nights when I imagine what it would feel like to just let it all out, to sit across from him, take his hand, and finally tell him the truth I've hidden for a quarter of a century. The thought is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it could unravel everything we've built, our marriage, our family, his trust. Liberating because maybe, just maybe, I could finally breathe without carrying this invisible weight on my chest. But every time I picture it, I also see his face crumbling, his world collapsing. I imagine him replaying our entire marriage through the lens of that betrayal, questioning every smile, every moment of intimacy, every promise. So I swallow it back down. I tell myself silence is mercy, that I'm protecting him, protecting us, protecting our children from heartbreak. Yet, deep down, I know I'm also protecting myself from the consequences of my choices. And that realization makes the guilt even sharper. This secret has shaped me in ways I didn't fully realize until recently. On the outside, I've been the loyal wife, the steady partner, the woman who kept the family together. People even tell me sometimes that we're an example of a perfect marriage. And every time I hear that, I smile, while something twists painfully inside me. On the inside, though, I've lived as two people, the woman I present to the world and the woman who knows the truth. And living in that split has made me both stronger and more fragile. Stronger because I've carried this weight for decades without letting it crush me. More fragile because I know that if it ever comes out, the image of who I am, the good wife, will shatter in an instant. Sometimes I wonder if I've overcompensated, if I've poured myself into being the perfect spouse and mother as a way to make up for what I did. But perfection doesn't erase the past. It only hides it. And maybe that's who I am now, someone who's both loved deeply and lied deeply. Even after all these years, I still don't know if I'll ever truly forgive myself. My husband may never find out. Our children may never know. The world may continue to see us as this stable, long-lasting couple who somehow beat the odds. But inside me, there's always been a quiet voice whispering, "You don't deserve this happiness. You built it on a lie." I've tried to silence it with love, with loyalty, with devotion. I've told myself that my actions since then should outweigh one mistake. But late at night, when the house is quiet and my thoughts get too loud, I can't escape it. Forgiveness, I've learned, isn't just about what others give you. It's about what you allow yourself. And maybe that's the cruelest part. Even if my husband never uncovers the truth, Even if my secret dies with me, I may never give myself the absolution I crave. Because no matter how much time passes, the past doesn't go away, it just settles in your bones. If I could turn back time, I'd make a different choice. Not just because of the pain it's caused me, but because of the shadow it's cast over every joyful moment of my life. I would have walked away from temptation. I would have protected not only my marriage, but also my own peace of mind. Because what I've learned is that secrets like this don't just stay buried, they live inside you, shaping who you become. To anyone reading this, I want to say, don't underestimate the cost of betrayal. It may seem fleeting, a mistake you can tuck away, but it will follow you. Even if no one else ever finds out, you will always know. And that knowledge is its own kind of prison. Do I love my husband? Absolutely. Have I been a devoted wife for 25 years? Without a doubt. But there's a part of me that will always feel unworthy of the life we've built. And that's the punishment I gave myself, one I'll carry until the very end.